How long in duration do you do those types of intervals? I'm always curious, like, what do you work up to as like what's a big day of low cadence, high torque work?
So the workout that I've done is um 3 minutes on, 3 minutes off, and two sets of four efforts. So 8 by 3 minutes total. So it's a bit shorter than like a normal threshold workout,
Mm-hmm.
but it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's definitely like feels like you've been to the gym after you do it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a little bit easier muscularly, harder aerobically at altitude, obviously. So I found it was maybe like I was getting a little bit more out of it when I was at sea level, but
Mm-hmm.
um, I just think combined with like lifting, it's still good. And like some guys talk about like doing torque efforts at like 40 RPM. I think at that point you're better off just going to the gym. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's important to maintain some degree of like cycling specificity.
I'm smiling because I was just talking to my coach Landry, who coaches with us, and I'm down in Florida. I'm like, where'd the torque stuff go? And he's like, well, you really can like barely get to 60 RPM there. I want you doing these at like 45. And I'm like, ugh, I don't want to do that. That sounds terrible. And he's really,
Because it's all flat.
it's so flat here, man. It's like
Uh-huh.
you just cruise at 22 miles an hour on a recovery day, and it's crazy. So I'm missing the mountains, but soon. What's what has kind of been a thread through your training from all these different types of disciplines? Like what's your no matter what you're training for, what's some of your go-to sessions?
That's a good question. My training honestly stays. Last year was the most change that I've done to my training because I was doing the Grand Prix as my big focus,
Okay.
and so I have a really good top end. I maybe don't have the best uh, and my threshold's good, but I don't think I have the best endurance compared to some of these guys. So
Hmm.
that's really what I was working on is just stacking the volume and doing a lot of like threshold efforts, like super fatigued.
Mm.
Normally though, um, my bread and butter is usually um, pretty much doing like one sprint workout a week. Um, Sometimes that's the big gear stuff, but more often it's just like a normal like 6 or 8 by all out sprint. And maybe that's coming in or out of like a little bit of threshold to have some fatigue. If you do like a sprint into threshold, that's a pretty good simulation of like a start of a cross or mountain bike race.
Hmm.
And just your ability to both sprint and then settle in. And during the cross season, I'll do it as like a start practice. And so I'll be doing more of that now that I'm racing cross country, and it's kind of a similar dynamic at the start. So not only do you get the high power, but it's like you got to start from a stop. You got to be able to shift through the gears, and just something that I find with that is it's really important to keep the cadence up, just to be able to accelerate as quickly as possible.
Mm.
And then I do a lot of workouts that are kind of combine VO2 threshold. So a typical one would be like 40 20s, maybe 10 or 12 40 20s into like 4 minutes of threshold
Mm.
straight in. Um, and usually I'll do very length efforts though. So maybe it'll be 50 10s, a set of 50 10s, a set of 40 20s, a set of 30 30s, or maybe even 2040, any of that stuff, and then settle into threshold for a little while. Um, I have a workout that I've got from Tom Skuyens, who's where it's he told my coach like this is like the only workout he really does a lot of the time, and It's so freaking hard, man. It's the one workout that I do where I feel like it's like pretty easy to fail on it. I don't do
Ooh.
a lot of workouts that are just ridiculously long. I do if I want to make it harder, I'll do it at the I usually do my efforts at the end of the ride. But if I'm really trying to like go to failure, I'll just go a bit harder or I'll add a bit of like climbing tempo like in the earlier portions of the ride rather than like just try to do like, an hour straight of 40/20s or something like that. Anyway, this workout is 2 minutes threshold, low cadence, like 60 RPM, 1 minute out of the saddle, and I'm usually shooting for about 120%. So I'm doing that like definitely try to keep it above 400. If I'm feeling good, 450. And that's for a minute, and then 2 minutes tempo, which is just like a slight recovery, but it's not great recovery. And you do that twice in a row, and then I'll do that maybe like 3 times. So it's like 30 minutes of just like super hard. And
Ooh.
Tom's like if I know I'm like feeling good, if I'm like can do like 2 by 20 of that. I never really try to do more than 10 minutes in a row. I think it's also though like with any threshold workout, it's like trying to go just slightly harder is going to knock the amount of time that you can do way
Totally.
down.
Yeah.
So I kind of have different focuses. Like if I'm trying to, I try to keep that like a little bit of a what am I training for in the back of my mind.
Mm.
So if I'm training for cross, I've done different variations of that workout where it's shorter, but it's kind of the same like theme. That makes
Hmm.
sense. And it's
Yeah.
maybe I'm repeating the same cycle, but it's less time in each, but it's harder.
Hmm. It sounds like you're
Or
very flow. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. It sounds like you're very flowy, like with your workouts when you're talking about, hey, like I might ride a little threshold before this, I might ride a little bit tempo, and then if it's more cross, maybe I go a little bit harder. Or is that kind of accurate?
yes,
You're not like super rigid. It's flowing with
no,
it.
no, and I think there's a lot to be gained from just like listening to how your body feels. And like so for example on my endurance rides, I sometimes I'll just be trying to get the time on the bike in, and sometimes I will be trying to stay on the pedals and coast as minimally as possible and keep the average power really high.
Mm.
And I think there's benefit to both of those things. And I think, you got to just look at what are the key sessions for the week, try and pick probably like 2 days that are the most important, and everything else it's okay to be a little bit cooked for everything else, or maybe not be nearly so focused in those if you can give 100% focus to those key sessions. So another big theme in my training is like I think this is pretty normal, but like going from high intensity, low duration efforts to higher duration, lower intensity as the training block goes on. So first day
Mm.
would be sprints, second day would be VO2, third day would be threshold, fourth day would be endurance. And maybe it's not 4 days, but just keeping that
Yeah.
general idea, because in order to do the high intensity, you need the quality there, and you can't do that if you're fatigued.
Hmm.
Um, just riding endurance, yeah, maybe the power is going to be lower if you're tired, but you're kind of getting the same benefit.
Hmm.
And I think that you even get you get the same benefit for less effort almost. I think you get more bang for your buck. And you just got to remember that like the goal of training is to be tired. Like you got to rest at some point, but it's okay to be tired, and it's okay to feel pretty bad for a significant number of your workouts, and you just got to figure out what is that point where the quality is too low and it's time to take a rest. So that's something that I've gotten better at, and my coach Grant Hollick and I have a great relationship, and it's like, we're kind of just more like friends now than coach and athlete. I do pretty well with like giving a lot of suggestion, kind of saying like, how about we do this? Last year I did a long period of time where I was doing 5 days on, 2 days off, and that was kind of inspired by the speed skater Niels van der Poel, who I would
Mm-hmm.
recommend anybody listening to look up him and his paper that he wrote.
Manifesto.
Yeah, he's the Olympic champion in speed skating, and just really a cool guy because he is, I mean, one of the best athletes in the world, and he has such a good attitude about what does sport mean in his life, and he really seems to get a lot out of sport, but he also has room for the other things, and he doesn't make it his whole life and personality that he's a good athlete. And so I think the 5-2 was pretty sweet in terms of I'm somebody who maybe gets a little bit of an inertia when I'm training. I don't like to take too long of breaks because then I'm not motivated to come back, and the rides just feel way too long if I've taken 2-3 weeks off. So it's nice to like get in that 5 day and be like, okay, it's the work week, like time to go. And then on those 2 days, just really be able to check out for like, almost 72 hours and prep food, hang out with friends, just have free day, work on the bikes, work on, send emails, do other work, whatever. And that was pretty nice. I found it was a little harder to get the quality in. I don't think you can do quite so many intervals or like strength work or stuff like that. So, I mean, like with anything, there's trade-offs, but I think it's good. It's almost like you get a little bit of that stage race benefit in training.